Hey, welcome back to Next Third Best Third. I'm David Fenwick, founder and the host. And today I've got a special guest, a friend of mine, all the way out from Sacramento, California, Ben Serpell. Ben is a father, he's a minister. He and his wife do ministry together. They've got several platforms. And Ben just really has a heart for families and a heart for men. And so today, what we're going to explore is we're going to dig into I think something that's very important for guys is to understand how do you go from being passive to powerful? Because in the work that I've done, Ben, this is a big thing for guys. Guys who we try to challenge them to arise, to dream again, to give hope, but they get complacent. So why don't you just run a little bit with that? Because I know this is dear to you.
Yeah, David, thanks so much for having me, man. Great introduction. You kind of captured my world pretty well in that quick little snippet. So good job. Um, yeah, I I think there's probably lots of directions we could go, but let me start at the beginning.
Okay, it's
I
always good.
yeah, I've been married 22 years, uh, to the same woman, having so much fun. I moved out here from Australia when I was 18 years old. She was 17. And I asked her to marry me the day before she turned 18 years old, so that's a whole story by itself. Her parents said yes, so it's all right. Calm down. And
Okay.
then um and then we jumped in. We said let's wait 3 to 5 years for babies, and a year in, we're like, I guess we're not waiting. We're doing this. So she was barely 20 years old when we had our first.
Wow.
And so that first one, Delaney, is now 20. We have Adeline, who's 16, just started driving, and then Lincoln, my son, is 13. And so just this long journey we've been on. But when I got back to the beginning of our marriage and then just little children running around, I think one of the biggest blocks I think that showed up in our life and in our marriage was my decision to become passive. And I think it really is an invitation that that I believe started in the garden.
Okay.
There's this whole story that we read with Adam and Eve, and Adam makes this decision to kind of step back and let his wife take the fall, if you will. You know, he
Yeah.
he didn't step in and cover or take ownership at all. He just said, "Well, it's not mine." And there was no responsibility, there was no ownership, there was no accountability. It's just this powerless approach. And I think for so many men in from different reasons in different places, we choose passivity as a protection mechanism because we're so afraid of something.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things I want to say right here is I always think about this story. I was coaching a guy years ago. He was quite a bit older than me, and he had been on the bull riding circuit, meaning he'd traveled the world doing the whole deal. And he's telling this story like, man, I would get out there and risk my life every night, and then I would get home and have to talk to my wife. And so he's describing this story, and I stopped him and said, I think I just heard you say that you're willing to risk your life and almost die every night, but you're terrified to talk to your wife. He goes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I said, yep, this is the thing.
Yeah.
Is you may be winning out there in the world, in your job, in your fill in the blank. You could be winning somewhere else, but if I shut down at home and I turn it off because of fear, or the example that was given to me, which is part of my story, is becoming passive and disengaged was the example I had. And so we began to build this reality and this agreement that I just stay disengaged because I don't know how to deal with this woman that's upset.
Right.
I don't know how to work through situations when she's not happy, or I'm doing it wrong, or I found out that I failed again, or I experienced a rejection message again. Why would I get back in there? And what actually is happening is I'm creating a world where she feels alone and devalued. And it's all about self-protection for me.
Wow. Wow.
And I think the whole time I thought I'm being really humble here. I'm protecting everyone and I'm not causing problems, really it's just a form of incognito pride, if you will. It's
Yeah.
just pride with a different face.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know in my own life, um, you know, my story to a point, but I had to come to I had to come to grips with a narrative that was put out when my wife left and say, okay, where was I culpable, right? Where did I actually drop the ball? You know,
Sure.
and my goodness, you know, by examining yourself and being honest, right? That honest appraisal, I realized, Ben, that I here I am. I'm a pastor. I've been preaching. I write books. I've got a podcast. I was a horrible communicator in my marriage, just
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was the same way.
Yeah,
And I didn't know till I found out that I didn't know.
right.
And I think there's lots of points in that journey where this began to be exposed and confronted, but one of them was, we did move from Reading to Sacramento, and we'd started this journey a little bit. But one of the things that really shifted it for us is we went on this self-awareness journey where we began to learn about how am I wired, how are you wired, what's so different about us, and it began to raise the bar for what scares you, where you're successful, what do you need, and now we're having different conversations because the things that used to threaten me, now I'm gaining value for.
Hmm.
The funniest example we often use is we were both in ministry, my wife and I, and we would go to parties all the time or functions with people everywhere. And I walk in there, and my goal is to shake hands or high five every person in the room because that's what we do. You know,
That's right.
that's what you're supposed to do.
Guilty as charged, right?
Yeah. And so I'm doing the pastoral thing, and just that's how I'm wired.
Hmm.
Brittany would walk in there, find the one person she already knows, and spend the entire party with that one person, and then leave and not say goodbye to anybody except that one person. We would get in the car, and the conversation would sound like, "Ben, do you have any real friends?" I'd say, "Well, Brittany, do you even like people?" Because we're so different, and I'm
Yeah,
so threatened by the difference.
yeah,
And then one day we took StrengthsFinders, and many people have heard of StrengthsFinders now. And I found out I have woo and includer, winning others over, and this need to include people.
yeah.
She has relator, which means she has a very small group of friends, and that's all she needs. My point here is that information, I gained a whole bunch of value for our difference, for the thing that used to scare me.
You're right.
And I was trying to change her.
You wanted her to be like you, right? Because
Exactly.
that way you function better. Hey,
I know how
come
to
on.
deal with me.
That's
Do it
right.
like me.
Do
Yeah.
it like me, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you and I are wired exactly the same. I don't, you know, I don't mean to meet a stranger. You know, I'm the guy who's obnoxious on the plane. I'll talk to anybody, you know, that kind of thing. And, but I had to come to terms with why was I like that? Because there's a good and a bad, right?
Sure.
There's two sides. And yeah, on the one side, I'm very inclusive. One side, I value people highly. You know, I want them to be seen. I want them to be heard. I want them to be, you know, significant.
Yep.
And yet on the other side, for me, is for years, there was that imposter syndrome or that fear of being found out, or maybe I don't really measure up, you know. And so if I could just make everybody happy, if I
Yep.
could keep everyone engaged, you know, be that life of the party. And I really, as I said, I didn't develop any kind of ability skills, right, to communicate clearly, right? Um, one of my daughters told me, oh, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something like that. She said, Dad, she goes, you never taught us, you and mom never taught us how to have conflict.
Mm.
She said, Mom buried everything and you avoided because everything's good. You're going to make everything better. And
Yep.
she said, so we didn't really know how to come to you and say, hey, I'm wrestling around with this, or I'm not happy with it, you know, whatever it may be, because mom would just dismiss it and you would just try to fix it with a scripture verse or making, you know, making light or whatever the thing. And I was like, I'm so sorry, you know, but that conversation, even at my age, has changed because now my kids adult kids, they're like going, we like this version of
Yeah.
you, Dad, right? This is good. This is healthy. And I'm seeing the difference.
Yeah, you can handle me on my best day, my worst day,
Right.
which I think the avoidant or the passivity, that protection mechanism that actually doesn't work. We think it does, but it creates that environment you're describing.
Yeah. How do
I
you
yeah,
see? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead,
Uh,
man.
how do you see now? So I can see that passivity in our personalities, right?
Hmm.
But how
Hmm.
does it play out in somebody who's not like us? Maybe the
Yeah,
person, because all these guys have all these different personalities.
yeah. I think let me answer it two different ways
Okay.
because I'm thinking about this as well. I think one of the things that often happens is, especially in marriage, but this could be different relationships. It could be your child, for men, especially a daughter. But when someone is expressing anger and they seem upset about something that you did or didn't do, of course I want to avoid that. That's
Right.
not fun.
No.
Um, but the thing that shifted my world, and I feel like I've watched so many men get this light bulb, that the anger is actually fear.
Okay.
That I'm scared or hurt, and if I can see it that way, it helps me stay engaged. I think the other side of this is, if you allow me to kind of play with it a little bit, I think even the explosive man and he's the angry one. I think that's still a form of self-protection.
Mm-hmm.
That he's actually
Yes.
he's not fully engaged in what's needed. The word provision we often use for men. He's meant to be the provider. I think the things that's most important is he is providing. The money's vital, obviously. We have to have a house and food, but really, it's the creating a safe place.
Mm.
I'm actually bringing high level emotional intelligence to our home. That the things you're talking about, that I can have these deep conversations. So I think anything that causes me to make protecting myself more important than protecting those ones that I've been tasked to lead,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
breakdown.
I love that you brought in the word provision or provider because we do have a tendency to think that is mere monetarily, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up, my dad was totally disengaged. He was a wonderful guy. I've told
Yeah.
this story about my dad many times. I mean, one of my favorite humans. He was funny. Everyone in town liked him. He was a businessman and everything, but he had zero interaction with us on any emotional, real level.
Yeah.
His way of showing us he loved us was providing financially, you
Yeah.
know and I think you grow, that was my example. And so I didn't have any skill set at all to say what you just said about, are you providing safe space? Are you
Yeah.
providing emotional intelligence? Are you providing um, uh, a room for mistakes to be explored and excavated, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
those kind of things.
Yeah. I've heard it said this way, that men set the standard for love in the home.
Wow. Wow.
So, so depending on where that standard is probably something you should be looking in the mirror to address.
Yeah.
If it's way down here, then potentially you just haven't learned. So I have to go find some help. If it's a set of brothers that are doing it well, if it's a spiritual father, if it's a course I take, it's something that educates me to raise the standard, because men really do set the standard of love in the home.
Hmm. That's incredible. I don't think I've ever really heard that before,
Yeah.
but it's so true,
Yeah.
you know, like I can see in my own life where was the standard of love for me. I was always very physical. My kids always got hugged and kissed, right? I mean, that was always there, but
Yeah.
I didn't set a standard of really honoring them enough to dig down deep and face my own fears. I had a daughter. I think I heard you tell the story of this or your wife one day. So I think we had a similar situation with one of our daughters. But I had a daughter who snuck out, right? She snuck out of the house and she was young in her early teens. And I found out, and I texted her on her phone just the word surprise, and I went and I got her. And I reacted so poorly.
Hmm.
Here I was a pastor. I came in, I was so upset with her that I tore her door off her bedroom and threw it in the garage. And I basically grounded her for months. I mean, it was like, you're not going to go out the front door unless we say you can, that kind of thing. And it wasn't until years later that I realized I was operating out of fear.
Yeah.
Fear that somehow this reflected on me, fear that I had no control, fear that I didn't have that. I realized at that time, Ben, I did not have a place where I could talk to her about this. I had no skill set and I never created a spot. And I'm like, "Oh, you big dummy, no wonder," right?
Yeah.
I just so mishandled it. But again, it was based on, I didn't know how. And at that point in my life, I was so busy leading a church
Yeah.
that I didn't have men in my life
Yeah.
that you and I both know how valuable that is now.
Yeah, and I would even add potentially, I wasn't there with the story, obviously, but um, I think part of the conversation for a lot of men too is fear of vulnerability.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yes.
is. It feels like someone trying to touch your eyeball when we want to move into being vulnerable.
Right.
It's one of the scariest things for us, especially men, is I feel so unsafe. I feel so uh the elements of the outside can hurt me when I become vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me
Right.
just stay in control.
Right. Yeah. You think you're in control,
Exactly.
but you're not at all, right?
And this is the thing I think, for our kids and our wives, we're actually creating a volatile environment when I keep it all to myself. When they
Mm-hmm.
never get to hear what's happening inside of me, they never get to be a part of my journey. They're
Right.
left guessing.
Right.
And my wife's mom says that we fill the gaps in poorly.
Mm.
So when I'm guessing what's happening inside of you, I'm probably not guessing the best.
Well, especially because you guys are so different in your personalities. So when
Yeah.
she's going to be guessing what's going on inside of you, she's going to be doing it from her perspective, which is totally different than where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, so just the thing that shifted for us is I realized I have chosen to stay disengaged to protect myself.
Yeah.
And the people really losing is me as one of them, but then really my wife and kids are not benefiting from the strength that God's put inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
They're missing out. And I mentioned earlier, I think, or we did somehow, that the fear of rejection and the fear of failure feel like the two things that just create so much of this protection mechanism. But what I've learned is it's often just the fear of it. It's not the experience of it.
Right. Right.
Once I actually experience it, I have something tangible to work through and I realize I'm going to be okay.
That's right.
But the fear of maybe me feeling rejected or finding out that I failed feels so real that I create a world where that could never happen.
That's right. Yeah. And you're never going to let that happen because it's going to be so horrible,
Yeah.
until it's not. This isn't an emotional thing, but years ago, I had a business and I had planted a church, and I turned to a longtime employee and I said, run this business like it's your own, and take care of it and all these kind of things. Well, he did. He embezzled and put me in bankruptcy. And so, but I fought the bankruptcy for years, and I put good money in after bad, trying to save this thing that had no life anymore, and I just refused to believe it. And if I was operating out of fear. So this just correlates. If
Yeah.
I would have realized 2 years earlier, just file, you're going to be okay. I would have
Yeah.
saved myself hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I operate out of fear, and it was devastating. So, I mean, it can happen in all different ways where that fear it's bigger than reality.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So my big encouragement, and I this probably one of the simplest ways to say it is just encouraging men to first of all become the best listener in the room.
Mm.
And part of what that means is, it's so easy to listen to all the emotion and the content, but there's usually a need. If it's your child, it's your wife, it's a friend, there's usually something underneath what they're trying to say that that really is what they're needing you to attend to. So if I can learn to listen better than they're talking, become the best listener in the room, and then respond to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's been a game changer for me.
How do you become a better listener?
Um, I think you take your hand and you put it over your mouth, and you talk
Okay.
less.
Yep.
I do think it starts there. Is there is things to say, but if I can if I can start with questions rather than advice or judgment or
Come
opinion,
on.
if I can start with questions first, then I'm actually pulling out of them what's inside of them rather than assuming I already know.
Right. That's so big right there.
Yeah,
As men, we want to fix things. We want to
absolutely.
shortcut things, but to be able to ask questions.
Yeah,
Wow. Ask questions without any kind of accusatory, you know, uh, tainting of them, right?
yeah. Or even the assumption that I know what you're going to say.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. Like I'm going to ask you a question, but I already know what you're going to say, so I'm actually not listening anymore to the answer.
Hmm.
I'm just waiting for you to be done talking so I get to talk again.
Wow.
I'm going to ask you a question and then put my hand over my mouth and turn my ears on and then listen for the heart
Hmm.
behind what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because this is especially for our children and our wives especially. This is what they're needing from us is, will you tend to my heart?
Mm, that's good. And they
Yeah.
want to know that they're safe.
Yeah.
They want to know that they're safe. I know, my daughters now, um, when we have conversations, those conversations, they know now that it's okay with
Yeah.
dad. You can ask dad these questions, or you can say this to dad, and he's not going to immediately go to, well, here's the answer. Because that's what drove them crazy is I was their dad, I was their pastor, and I owned a business that several of them worked in. I was their employer, so dad had all the answers all the time
Yeah.
instead of being just present,
Wow.
just saying, hey, and again, there's no regret or shame on that. I mean, you only know what you know,
Yeah.
so how do you see then? We talking about passive and we're talking about some of this tools, but what does powerful look like?
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually the ability to manage myself, to stay in control of me, and then do what I said I was going to do.
Mhm.
So I think if I'm talking just to men, I think every man gets married with the intention to do a great job.
Yeah,
I've never met a man, and I've done many marriage. I've done many weddings. I've never been a part of a wedding when he's like, I'd like to do a mediocre job.
that's right.
I'm like, then get out of here. I'm not doing this wedding.
That's right.
you know, Come back when you're ready. So I think we all start with that, but somewhere along the way, something else gets to tell me what to do. It's my wife's fear. It's the anger. It's my children's insecurities. It's the disconnection. There's something else telling me how to live.
Hmm.
So if I can take back control of myself and be in charge of me and realize I don't control anyone else. That's their job to be in charge of them. If
Right.
I can just do a good job with me, then I can show up and bring the strength that's required rather than trying to either be controlled or control someone else.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. But again, there's a vulnerability to examine your life and to say, okay, where am I out of control? How
Yes.
can I control myself? And I think that's really, it's difficult, but you and I both have found it. We can find community with guys who will be we get vulnerable with them to the point where they're not trying to fix us. They're
Yep.
just saying, I see you, you know, and you're loved, you know, because that's a big thing for me is as much of a people person as I am, and is how I would high five and meet everybody in the room. I loved them, but I never really loved me,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
and that took time for me to go through and say, okay, despite myself, despite how I got here, do I do I really feel that God loves me? You know, and if so, then I should be loving myself. And then I finally got to the position where I'm starting to like myself, and that's even better. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I just did what you talking about last night. Those that haven't heard about Dragon Slayers, it's a book
Mhm.
my wife's dad wrote, Danny Silk, a couple of years ago, and he kicked off a 12-person group where I've been in that group for 4.5 years now, and then I
Yeah,
started my own group, been going about 2.5 years. We met last night. Half the group's online, half the group's in my garage last night. It was cold for California,
yeah,
and it was kind of funny. It was a long day for me, and lots going on. And I walked out. I didn't realize my friend had already arrived, and he was sitting out there, just hanging out in my garage waiting for me. And I told him I'm really honest, and I said, "This is the next thing I have to do. There's one more thing today I have to get through, and it's my guys." As soon as I saw him, I went. It was like this deep breath came over me, and I went, "This is what I need."
yeah.
It's something about being seen and known by my guys. They're not trying to fix me.
Right.
Not trying to tell me what to do, but I can go gain strength there to bring back to my family.
That's right. That's right. Well, you and I met on a Dragon Slayers retreat.
Yep,
And I've got my own group here, and um, these guys are. Well, I love what your father-in-law, how Danny kind of started it. He says, when you select these guys, that selection process, right? I
yep,
want I want men in my life who I want in my life for the rest of my life.
that's right.
And then I want men that I want the whole world to know. And there's something powerful there, right? To select guys that way, saying, do I really want him in my life for the rest of my life? And if so, then and you convey this, now all of a sudden you've just set the value bar so high,
That's right.
saying, hey, we're not going to lose this. We're going to be real with each other. We're going to support each other. We're going to walk with each other. We're not going to try to fix each other, and I have gleaned so much strength from the
Yeah,
guys. And like you say, sometimes when we get together, we're all here locally. So none of us are on Zoom or anything,
that's great.
which was intentional. I had a bunch of guys who are out of town that I wanted on the group, but I really wanted hands on because I felt like for me, I needed that. But you're 100% right. I walk into the meetings, when we gather together, it's just like going, yes, this is what
Yeah,
I need.
yeah, and the thing hiding there right now, the thing hiding in what you're describing that I think really fits in this conversation too is that we need covenant-minded men
Yeah.
in every part of their life. You know that my children experience me as a covenant man.
Mm,
That people around me feel like that's a guy that's gonna do what he says he's gonna do. He's gonna do a good job with him, and you can trust him.
yeah.
You know, because
So,
it just challenges this thing because what I've noticed with brothers especially is it's usually a short-term thing, especially in church. You know,
mhm,
we do a class for 6 weeks and it's really great, and then we like peace out. I might see you next year. And there's not really this commitment and requirement to stay the course, and that flows into every other relationship in my life.
right. Right. Covenant is a word that maybe some of our subscribers and listeners aren't familiar with, right?
Sure.
Um, dig into that a little bit. What does it mean to be a covenant man? You touched on a little bit, but I think there's more there.
Yeah, it is the ability to, in its simplest form for me, just to never let go.
Mm,
You know, I I have 12 men. One of the guys that I invited early on decided to let go, which is one of the hardest things I've been through in the last couple of years.
Hmm.
That and losing my golden retriever. That's up there as well. But it was a really really hard moment because I had said I'm in this. But the thing that it taught me is I actually didn't let go. That door is still open,
Yeah.
so he has the option to let go.
Yeah.
And we watch this in business, we watch this in marriage. There's lots of places we watch this. Like somebody let go. I haven't let go yet.
That's good.
Meaning, if that guy called me tomorrow and said, "Dude, I'm so sorry. Can we can we mend this thing?" I'm like, the door never closed
That's good.
because I'm a covenant man. I'm not gonna let go. And then there's obviously grace for I didn't know or I messed it up or this isn't you did it wrong. It's what am I doing from today on? What kind of man do I want to be famous
Hmm.
as?
So there's right there. There's this area for where he might have pulled away. And I'm just talking that maybe out of fear,
Hmm.
in his own right. And here you're saying, no, we're not going to let go. We're going to be we're going to set up healthy communication. We're here for you. That whole thing. And I think that that's a big part of, because in relationships, I had a brother who, for reasons, for his own reasons, felt kind of wounded by his family, and so he didn't talk to any of us for over 20 years.
Wow.
And it was interesting because even in my mind, I was kind of like going, I forgive him, or he's welcome back, but I wasn't proactive or anything. And honestly, I wasn't really holding on. You know,
Hmm.
I did kind of let go. And then through circumstances, I had a daughter who really has recommitted herself. She's in seminary right now. She's going after it. She felt a couple of years ago, she says, and she had never met him. So she was at an age, at that time, she was like 24, 23. He hadn't seen us in 25 years or 24 years. So he had never met her. And
Wow.
she said, Dad, I'm going to go see him. I'm going to see Uncle Joe. And I said, great. And when she said that, all of a sudden, the whole concept of reconciliation, came to me. And 2 Corinthians 5, talks about God was reconciling the world
Yeah.
unto himself, not counting men's sins against him. And I was like going, wait a minute, I'm going to partner with this with you. And so we just believed that he was going to receive her well. Well, he did. And several years ago, he walked back into our life on a Christmas
Wow.
day, and he and I are tight as can be. It's almost like
Oh.
it never happened. So there is something there about not letting go, and and believing the best, even if you've been hurt, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
love
And
said,
and this
go ahead. I'm sorry.
go I was gonna say this comes back to this whole being powerful concept that I'm in charge of me. You don't manage
Yeah.
my love. And
Yes.
this really is what God put on display for us. You
Yeah.
know, and we serve a covenant God,
Yeah.
and He has never let go. He's never going to let go. And no matter how much I try, I cannot control His love for me. Yeah, but I did this thing. Yeah, but that went wrong. But how do you still stop it? You
Just stop.
cannot control my love.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, um, uh, when I met you, I was going through all that pain of when my wife left. And one of the greatest things when you said, control what you can control,
Hmm.
is I made a decision 7 years ago that I was going to invest in myself. I was
Yeah.
going to do something so totally against me because I didn't love myself. I was full of fear, all these kind of things. I said, no, I'm going to be the best version of me that I can be. And that's when I came up with the concept of next third, best third.
Wow.
But I'm telling you, it's the truth, because by me investing in myself and controlling what I could control,
Yeah.
all the relationships in my life have improved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
So good. And I was talking recently with my wife's dad just about some different stuff, and we use the word healthy often. We want to, and we really believe this that we want to see whole healthy people,
yeah,
whole healthy families.
yeah,
That's going to shift everything if we can begin to create whole healthy families. And so we're kind of telling this word healthy. I'm like, okay, well, there's health, what we know as health, but what is relational and personal health?
Mm.
and we just came up with the word powerful. It's my ability to be in charge of me.
Yeah,
That's a healthy person. No outside force gets to be in charge of me. Fear, pain, disconnection, none of that stuff gets to manage me. And this is a healthy, powerful person.
that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. I know that in the last decade, the term boundaries has been thrown around a lot, and I think misused and overused and everything. But for me, what you're saying, that's the best boundary. Saying I'm not
Yeah.
going to let anything
Yeah.
dictate me. Right.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
well, this is good. Man, this is so good. I could talk with you on this forever and ever. But um, yeah. So Ben, I know that this is something dear in your heart, but I think more than anything, the guys here listening is you need to understand that you're not alone. You know,
Yeah.
we all have experienced this kind of stuff. Recognize so much that fear, where fear is dictating your life.
That's right.
But I think that if we truly want to be powerful, powerful doesn't mean lording over. It means being vulnerable, um, protecting, establishing that covenant
Yeah.
commitment, you know. Anything else you want to leave the guys with before we cut off?
Yeah. Just maybe round out that powerful concept.
Yeah.
Maybe a different word to use is honor.
Okay.
That I'm bringing honor with me everywhere that I go. That people
Hmm.
experience that. And one of my favorite ways to talk about it is kind of like wealth. That carrying honor is like wealth, meaning everywhere that I go, I am bringing something to benefit your life rather than coming to you to get something from you.
I love that.
And so this is what becoming a powerful and really moving from passivity to powerful is you're an honorable man that is actually bringing something to contribute, not consume.
I love that. So that is such a powerful statement, right? Because if we see every relationship like I've got something to bring here, and that is powerful, right?
That's it right
That's
there.
it right there.
Do
So
that. Yep.
so good, so good. Well, Ben, thanks so much for being here. I know
Thanks,
we're
David.
hopefully going to get another episode filmed, but this has been great. And for all of the listeners, if you'd do me a favor, if you'd like, if you comment, we love that. Subscribe and share. And we really are excited that your next third is going to be your best third. We'll see you next time.